Over the past couple of years, there has been much attention focused on the epidemic of sexual misconduct within the American workplace and culture. Movements like #MeToo and Time's Up have brought the issues of sexual harassment and sexual misconduct to the forefront of American media, hoping that these issues are finally dealt with. However, this might be easier said than done because unfortunately, the sexual harassment of women has gone on for countless centuries and only within the past 100 years has seen real improvement.
One prominent example of recent sexual harassment cases comes from the allegations surrounding celebrities Harvey Weinstein, Kevin Spacey, Louis C.K., and many more. These men, once at the top of their respective industries, have now fallen from grace and deservedly so. However, looking at these cases brings up another issue: the objectification of women in media.
Please sit down.
I'm just gonna.
Okay, go back to your seat, please.
What are you upset about?
Please go back to your seat.
I'm not fine.
I will have to call the captain.
We're gonna
Please,
hold
sir.
this.
Please,
We're gonna
sit down.
All right,
Please sit down.
Okay,
I'm going.
Okay,
Yes.
sorry.
Stop.
We apologize. We're
okay.
gonna go to sleep, man.
Question, I want to ask you a question.
Fasten your seatbelt.
Okay.
We cannot take off if you haven't fastened
I'm
your
really
seatbelt.
horny too.
Sit down, fasten it.
Okay,
I
I'll
will
sit
do
down.
it for you.
What?
I will do it for you.
Okay.
You gotta speak English.
Come do it for
We
me.
don't understand
Come
this
here.
language.
Come here.
I will help him with his
He can't
seatbelt.
seem to
Yeah,
do
help
it.
me
He's
with my-
fucking idiot. You gotta
Sit
put it
back,
on right.
sit back.
There you
All
go.
right.
Yeah,
I'll
there
just
you
leave
go.
that. So,
Please, bitte Hilfe.
Hilfe! Hilfe!
Donnie, this isn't funny. You gotta untie me, buddy.
I can't untie you. The captain tied you up. He almost fucking tasered you. Why? Why?
Now, these films are of course fictional. However, they paint a negative picture of acceptable behavior to our youth, particularly young men. Which of course leads to perhaps the biggest issue of all, the fact that men are the perpetrators in almost all sexual misconduct, assault, and abuse cases. The truth is, we live in a society that not only has strict gender norms, but also perpetuates a rape culture. This is a tough combination to beat when considering that both standard and adult entertainment industries give crappy examples of what relationships should be, leaving our youth very few positive influences on their personal and sexual lives.
What follows is a compilation and comparison of opinions from students, staff, and medical specialists on sexual harassment, hostile work environments, and rape culture. Additionally, we will draw a comparison of harsher actions that stem from the behaviors of sexual misconduct, such as sexual assault and physical abuse, to form an idea of the climate surrounding the previous terms at our university and beyond.
I would define sexual harassment as making unwanted comments that maybe have some sexual context to them. So whether that's about a person's body or maybe something more sexual in nature, that's probably what I would consider.
Sexual harassment is like the discrimination or making somebody feel uncomfortable based on like their sex or their like how they're expressing their gender. I feel like that also falls into place.
I think sexual harassment is non-consensual sexual interactions, and it can also not just be like physical, but it can be alluding sexual things or innuendos that are inappropriate.
When we say a work environment could be hostile, that could be for any amount of reasons, I think. I guess for the most part, that would be if someone is trying to use, their authority or power to manipulate another one of the employees or a subordinate into doing something they don't want to do, or if someone is trying to intimidate or coerce someone into some sort of action because of that power.
Whether a hostile environment can be a place where individuals don't feel safe in sharing their ideas, their motives, their values, their goals due to another person's already established culture and means in which the office is intended to go.
I don't know, I guess having people willing to break those norms and I guess make themselves public so that other people could identify with them and see that they're not, that gender roles aren't the one and only way to behave or dress or act.
I think the biggest thing is definitely educating people about the definitions. I mean, like, I don't even know exactly what like the dictionary would say or what most offices would say about what is sexual harassment. So I think education is definitely a good place to start.
It starts with valuing the voices of the people who may say that something's wrong with the system in the first place. If we don't value the critiques of the system, then we can't even, then there's always going to be a buildup of more radical thought, I guess.
Being raised that you are a sex symbol, whether you want to be or not, and not really understanding that that's not normal. Also allowing kind of special gender separations for men and allowing men to like get away with things and emotional outbursts that women cannot.
The act of it is never a singular thing, right? It is never a singular act. It is always the accumulation of experiences and time. It's always going to be the byproduct of individuals who have gone unchecked and individuals who feel safe in where they are to actually partake in the act of sexual assault.
Yep, definitely. And record amount of people are watching it, and the younger that they get with the more access to technology, and that's perpetuates like rape culture to the nth degree.
There is some clear signs that pornography does not have the proper context of intimacy, I guess.
We had the honor of interviewing Dr. Michael Swoboda, who works at Dell Children's Medical Center as a children's sexual assault and physical abuse specialist. Michael has been in his current position for over a decade and takes pride in his role in stopping sexual and physical abuse. We were eager to get his opinion on our topic and draw parallels between behaviors exhibited in his line of work and the ones shown in our video.
So anybody, man or female, or woman, or any of the other ways that someone might identify themselves, are capable of perpetrating abuse or neglect on a child. But in general terms, men are far more likely to be the perpetrators of physical abuse on children and sexual abuse. Generally, in the home environment, when we're talking about sexual violence or domestic violence, it goes way beyond harassment. Yeah. But it probably started off as harassment at some point. But domestic violence, the thing that we do look for as a risk factor, is one of the key risk factors that we look for. And those children that have domestic, or living in a home environment where there is domestic violence, we do very thorough workups on those kids, and quite often, I don't have a percentage number, but what we'll find is those kids are actually suffering from physical abuse and some form of neglect as well. Absolutely, because there's not only violence between the two caregivers in the home, and it doesn't matter if it's man on woman, which is the primary one, but it can be woman on woman or man on man for that matter. The kids quite often will get caught up in that, and the parents are too busy fighting with one another, so that leads to neglect. And then if that child gets in the middle of that, quite often we'll see those kids and they'll have injuries. That is a very tough question, but I think it is probably multifactorial. I think that certainly a good portion of it is the society and the way that men are raised to be more violent or violence is accepted. Although I don't think that is the only reason, because we certainly see a lot of men who are raised in the same type of environment and are perfectly fine and aren't sexual predators or sexual abusers. So it's a difficult question to answer, but certainly society and the norms that we live in play a role.
Students seemed pretty adept when answering what their personal definition of sexual harassment was. This shows that an awareness of this topic is already instilled within our youth. However, the issue comes with our response to these problems. While it has gotten better, people still turn their heads away when confronted with issues like sexual harassment. When is our society finally going to move on from these behaviors? When are men going to put their foot down and act?
During our interviews, we observed some viewpoint among fellow peers and specialists in our Austin community about sexual harassment and other forms of harassment in society. First, the definition of sexual assault is well known and understood in our youth. Second, man being the main perpetrator of acts from sexual harassment to abuse is the major societal problem that needs to be looked at. Third, everyone that we interview agreed that education and parenting are the best way to combat these issues.
The purpose of this film was not to judge people's behaviors, but simply to again bring these issues to the forefront of our minds. Acts of sexual harassment, sexual assault, and abuse are all interrelated, and we must recognize that the choice of permitting one could produce another. These are global issues, and every one of us will have to deal with the repercussions if these issues are not handled. We must continue to pursue equality and fairness.